I can't tell you how much I dislike time zones. Here's the live rally. So, hi everybody. Just so you know, this is actually being broadcast live right now. And I just want to... This is on the official Bernie Sanders channel. This is Bernie 2016. The official Bernie Sanders channel. We'll get comments rolling here in a second. Thank you for being with us.
So we bought a pack of cigarettes, and this is one of my eyes. I walked off to look for Kathy, I said as we boarded a Greyhound in Pittsburgh. She said the man in the Aberdeen suit was a spy. I said be careful, his bow tie is really a camera.
Ladies and gentlemen, Chair of the Indiana Democratic Caucus, Representative John Bartlett.
Good evening. Do you have the burn? Well, I didn't have. And I listened to Senator Bernie Sanders, and I listened to his stand on education as opposed to mass incarceration. I said, I think I'm getting the burn. I looked at where Senator Sanders stood on education without college debt. I'm getting the burn. I looked at where he stood with no discrimination for no one who lives in these United States. I'm getting a burn. I looked at his position on trade policy. I'm a union guy. I'm getting a burn. I looked at where he stood on if you work a job, you receive a living wage. I'm getting the burn. I looked at where he stood on equal pay for equal work. And then I said, I've got the burn. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give it up for the next president of these United States, Bernie Sanders.
You know, thank you, Indiana University. You know, a lot of wonderful things have happened to me in the course of this campaign, but I think the most gratifying is that all over this country, from Maine to California and here in Indiana, we were told a year ago that young people are not interested in politics, they're not interested in government, they're very interested in their video games and everything else. That's what we were told. But you know what I'm seeing? I'm seeing that young people understand that they are the future of this country. And that they damn well want to influence that future. So let me thank all of you for being here this evening, and let me thank the many thousands of people outside who couldn't get inside. Thank you all. And let me thank those folks who introduced me, Stanley Jaguna, Representative John Bartlett. Thank you very much, John, for your support. And Khalid Bauer, the president of Indiana University Students for Bernie. Khalid, thank you very much. Let me begin by telling you what no other candidate for president will tell you, and that is that given the realities of the economy and the political life of America today, no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, is capable of dealing with the many crises that we have. The only way that we transform this country is through a political revolution. And what that means is that millions of people throughout our country, many of whom, by the way, have given up on the political process. They look at Washington, they look at their state capitals, and they do not see efforts there to address the real problems they face. They say, hey, I don't want to get involved in this charade. And young people, many of whom have never been involved in the political process, what we need to do now is to see millions of people jump into the political process and understand that when they stand up and fight back, they are very powerful people. You know, when we began this campaign almost a year ago, we had no political organization, we had no money, we had no name recognition out of Vermont, and we were considered to be a fringe candidacy by the media. They understood that my hair really looked great, and that I had a GQ look, which made me president, but despite all of that, they considered us to be a fringe candidacy. And not only that, we were taking on and are taking on Wall Street, we're taking on corporate America, we're taking on super PACs, we're taking on the corporate media. We are taking on virtually the entire Democratic political establishment. And in the Clinton organization, we're taking on the most powerful political organization in the United States, an organization that has elected Bill Clinton twice. Hillary Clinton ran a very strong campaign in 2008. That is what we were taking on. Well, you know what? A year has come and gone. And as of today, we have now won 17 primary and caucus states. And with your help, we're going to win here in Indiana next Tuesday. We have now won some 1,350 delegates to the Democratic Convention. When we began this campaign, we were 60 points behind Secretary Clinton. Well, in the last few weeks, several of the national polls actually have us leading or just a few points behind. And most importantly and most interestingly, if you look at the last half a dozen national matchup polls between Secretary Clinton and Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, in every one of these polls, we are beating Trump badly. And we are beating him by larger margins in every instance than Secretary Clinton. And the political reason for that is pretty obvious, and that is this campaign is getting the support of the vast majority of Democrats, but we are also reaching out to independents. And the truth is that Democrats will only win if we bring in a number of Democrats onto our side, and many of them are prepared to do that. The reason that this campaign is going to win is because we are doing something very unusual. In contemporary American politics, we're telling the truth. And let me just suggest to you that the truth is not always pleasant. It is not always easy to hear or what we want to hear, not in our personal lives and not in our political lives. But I believe that if we continue to sweep under the rug the most important problems that we face, this country will never, ever be able to go forward. And that's what this campaign is about and what the political revolution is about. It is having the courage to face up to the real problems that we face and then address them effectively. And let me mention to you some of those problems that we don't talk about enough, very rarely talked about in the media. Problem number one is today we are living under a corrupt campaign finance system which is undermining American democracy. Democracy is not a complicated process. What it means is you have one vote, you got one vote, you got one vote. One person, one vote. That's democracy. Democracy is not about you having a vote and him spending several $100 million in a campaign through a super PAC to elect candidates who represent the wealthy and the powerful. That is not democracy. That is called oligarchy. And one of the great issues that we have got to address is that politically, economically, and in terms of media ownership, we are seeing fewer and fewer wealthy and powerful entities controlling the United States of America. What democracy means to me is that our country has one of the largest voter turnout rates, one of the highest voter turnout rates of any major country on earth, not one of the lowest voter turnout rates. What democracy means is telling Republican governors all over this country that they will not get away with trying to suppress the vote and making it harder for people to vote. Our job is to think big. Our job is to think outside of the status quo. Our job is to think of a democracy when 75, 80% of the people vote, not 40 or 50% of the people voting. Our job is to say that if any person here tonight, whether you're a progressive, a conservative, or a moderate, if you want to run for public office, you should be able to do so without having to beg wealthy people for campaign contributions. So let me repeat what I have said many times before. If I'm elected president, no nominee of mine to the U.S. Supreme Court will get that nomination unless he or she is crystal clear in telling the American people they will vote to overturn Citizens United. So issue number one is to create a democracy now in which ordinary people have the power, not just a handful of billionaires. But that's not all that we have got to do. We have got to understand that today not only do we have a corrupt campaign finance system, we have a rigged economy. A rigged economy is when the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. A rigged economy is when the 20 wealthiest people, 20 people, own more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans, half of our population. A rigged economy is when one family, the Walton family who owns Walmart, one family owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. But it is worse than that, because a rigged economy is when the wealthiest family in America pays its employees wages that are so low that many of these workers are forced to go on Medicaid and food stamps. And the middle class ends up paying higher taxes to subsidize the low wages paid by the wealthiest family in America. That is a rigged economy. I hear a lot of Republican senators and congresspeople, they go all over the country and they talk about how people are ripping off the welfare system. Well, let me tell you that the major welfare beneficiary in this country is the wealthiest family, the Walton family. And I say to that family, the wealthiest family in America, get off of welfare, pay your workers a living wage. This campaign, again, is thinking outside of the box, thinking outside of the ways and the options that television or Congress wants you to think. Question, I want you to think about this one. 40 years ago in this country, before the explosion of technology and cell phones and space age technology and all that stuff, before the explosion of the global economy, one person in a family, one person could work 40 hours a week and earn enough money to take care of the whole family. The question that we have got to ask is, how does it happen that with all of the technology and the increase in worker productivity, why today does it take mom working 40 hours a week, dad working 40 hours, the kids working, and they still don't have enough money to pay the bills? What we have been seeing in this country, again, not talked about terribly much in the media, is that for the last 30, 40 years, we have been seeing the middle class shrinking and shrinking, and almost all new wealth and income going to the people on top. In fact, in the last 25 years, the top 1/10 of 1% has seen a doubling of the percentage of wealth they own. There has been a massive transfer of trillions of dollars from the hands and the pocketbooks of the middle class to the very wealthiest people in this country. Here in the state of Indiana, for example, since 2007, real median income has gone down by more than $4,700. And Indiana is not the only state in our country where that is happening. Are you guys ready for a radical idea? Here is the radical idea. At a time when we have massive levels of income and wealth inequality, at a time when our people work the longest hours of any people in the industrialized world, at a time when we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth, together, we are going to create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, if we were a poor country, and there are, God knows, too many impoverished countries all over the world, we would have a certain type of discussion. And the discussion would be, sure, we want great health care, sure, we want great education, sure, we want a great infrastructure, but we're a poor country. We just can't afford to do that. Brothers and sisters, we are not a poor country. We're the richest country in the history of the world. But nobody knows that, because all of the wealth and income, or almost all of it, is going to the people on top. Now, that means that we got to take a hard look at what goes on in America today. Question, any psychologists here? Any psychologists? There we go. Okay. Every psychologist who has studied the issue will tell you that the most important years of a human being's development are 0 through 4. Is that right? All right. That is when we develop intellectually and when we develop emotionally. Think for a moment. Mom is out working, dad's out working. Who's taking care of the kids? Well, all over this country, mom and dad are desperately trying to find quality, affordable child care, and in many cases they can't. Turns out that there are child care workers, people who have the responsibility of providing the intellectual and emotional nourishment that the youngest Americans need. Their wages are lower than McDonald's workers. If we want the young generation to grow, to blossom, to be the kinds of young people that we know they can be. We owe them much more. We owe them a first-class child care pre-K system. Is that a radical demand to say that our young children, the future of this country, deserve quality child care and their parents deserve the right to know that when they go to work, their kids are well taken care of? I don't think that that is a radical idea. We need in America, when we think about our economy, if you go out to work and you work 40 hours a week, in America, you should not be living in poverty. But in America today, and again, this is something you don't see on the media, and the reasons I want you to be thinking about that as well. Why, what gets on media and what doesn't get on media, and who makes those determinations and for what reasons. But in America today, the wealthiest country in the history of the world, 47 million people are living in poverty. Here in your great state of Indiana, 330,000 children are living in poverty. 16,000 public school students in Indiana were homeless during the 2012-2013 school year. 16,000 children in this state were homeless. Why is that? Why do we tolerate that? Why do we accept that? And together, we are going to create an economy which will not accept that. But if you are working in this country and you're making $8-9 an hour, you're not making it, because nobody can make it on $8 or $9 an hour, and that is why we have got to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour. There is an issue of huge consequence that we have very little discussion about, and that is our disastrous trade policies that have cost us over the years millions of good-paying jobs. Since 2001, last 15 or so years, in our country, we have lost 60,000 factories and millions of good-paying jobs. Not all of that is attributable to trade policy, but a lot of it is. Policies like NAFTA and CAFTA and permanent normal trade relations with China were written by corporate America for one reason and one reason alone. They were determined not to pay people in Indiana or workers in Vermont $20 an hour or $25 an hour. They were determined to shut down plants in this country, move to Mexico, move to China, pay people their pennies an hour, and bring their products back into this country. Since the passage of NAFTA in 1994, Indiana has lost 113,000 good-paying manufacturing jobs. In 2014, Caterpillar threw 250 workers out on the street in Lafayette and moved its engine manufacturing plant to China. And in February, Carrier and United Technologies announced it would be shutting down 2 manufacturing plants in Indiana, throwing 2,100 workers out on the street and moving to Monterrey, Mexico, where they can pay workers $3 an hour. And that is a company that last year made a profit of $7 billion, and a company that paid its CEO over $14 million in total compensation. But that is the type of corporate greed that is destroying the American middle class. And I say to corporate America that if I'm elected president, those days of greed are going to end. You're not going to throw... You are not going to throw American workers out on the street and then move to China or to Mexico. When we talk about our economy, we have to talk about the fact that our infrastructure is in a state of collapse. And again, I ask you, how does it happen that in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, our water systems, our wastewater plants, our roads, our bridges, our rail system, airports, levees, and dams are in massive need of repair, and in many cases are crumbling? Let me read you something. Just a recent article. This is what it says. The United States is on the verge of a national crisis that could mean the end of clean, cheap water. Hundreds of cities and towns are at risk of sudden and severe shortages, either because available water is not safe to drink or because there simply isn't enough of it. I was in Flint, Michigan a few months ago, talked to the parents of children who have been poisoned through lead in the water. But it is not just Flint, Michigan, it is hundreds of communities throughout this country. And it's not just our water systems, it is other parts of our infrastructure. And that is why, if I'm elected president, we are going to invest $1 trillion in rebuilding our roads, our water systems, our wastewater plants. And when we do that, not only do we make America more productive and safer, we create 13 million good-paying jobs. This campaign is going to win because we are listening to the American people and not just wealthy campaign contributors. And I come before you with a great deal of pride in telling you that I am the only candidate out there for president who does not have a super PAC, does not want a super PAC. We made a decision early on in our campaign that we were not going to ask the drug companies or the fossil fuel industry or Wall Street for money. We don't want their money. We don't need their money. Instead, we did something very unusual. We said to the American people, if you want to support a campaign that is going to support the middle class, that is going to stand up to the big money interests, help us out. And what happened is, over the last 11 and a half months, we have received more than 7 million individual campaign contributions. Anyone know what the average contribution is? All right. That's right, $27. And that in itself is revolutionary, because what we are showing is we can run a winning campaign without being dependent on big money interests. Now, my Democratic opponent, Secretary Clinton, has chosen to raise money in a different way. She has several super PACs and has received $25 million in a recent reporting period from special interest, including $15 million from super PACs, $15 million from Wall Street. And in addition to that, as some of you may know, she has given speeches on Wall Street for $225,000 a speech. Now, I believe that if you give a speech for $225,000, must be a pretty fantastic speech. Must be a speech that will probably solve all of the crises facing humanity. Must be a speech written in Shakespearean prose. So I kind of think that it would be great for the Secretary to share that speech with all of us so we can learn from it. Secretary Clinton says, well, she is prepared to release the transcripts if other people do the same. So, no. Are you ready for a major announcement? Here it is. Hold your breath. It's coming. I am prepared tonight to release all of the transcripts of all of the speeches that I have given to Wall Street. All right, you ready? Here they are. Shh. Okay. Now, of course, I'm being a little bit silly. Wall Street has not yet invited me to give a speech for $225,000. But I got to tell you, got my cell phone on. I'm waiting. I'm waiting for Wall Street to call. And I don't want $225. I don't want $2. But I do want and would like the opportunity to tell Wall Street what they have done to the American people. In my view, as a result of the unquestionable greed of Wall Street, as a result of their recklessness and their illegal behavior, this country was plunged, as you all know, into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. And as a result of that, millions of our fellow Americans lost their jobs. And by the way, many have not yet recovered. Many have lost their homes, and some lost their life savings. That is what Wall Street greed did. And if I were to go before Wall Street, what I would tell them is they were bailed out by Congress against my vote, because the leading banks because the major banks were too big to fail. In other words, the perception was that if they were allowed to go down, they would take half of the economy with them. Well, it turns out that today, 3 out of the 4 largest banks in this country are bigger than they were when they were bailed out because they were too big to fail. In my view, when you have a handful of giant financial institutions, and the 6 largest banks in this country issue 2/3 of the credit cards and 1/3 of the mortgages, when you have a small number of people with so much economic and political power, we have got to break them up. We need a financial system that works for small and medium-sized businesses, that works for consumers, not just a financial system that is an island unto itself, only concerned about their own profits. And I want to take a moment to tell you a short story which really will kind of encapsulate everything that is wrong with our economic and political system. Some of you may have noticed that 2 or 3 weeks ago, Goldman Sachs, one of the major financial institutions on Wall Street, reached a settlement with the United States government and paid $5 billion. They reached that settlement because they were guilty of selling worthless packages of subprime mortgage loans. They were lying to investors about what was in those packages. They paid a fine of $5 billion. That's point number one. And you got to think about that for a second. Wall Street is the most powerful economic entity in the United States of America, and virtually all of the major banks have a business model which is based on fraud. Number two, when we talk about the political power of big money interest, Goldman Sachs itself, over the last 25 years, has had 2 executives from their company, from Goldman Sachs, become secretaries of the Treasury. And many other people from Goldman Sachs have assumed very important governmental positions under Republican and Democratic administrations. That is called the revolving door. You know what the revolving door is? You go from Wall Street to government, you do Wall Street's business while you're in government, then you leave and you go back to Wall Street, you make a whole lot more money. Number 3, like many other major Wall Street and powerful corporate interests, Goldman Sachs has made millions and millions of dollars of campaign contributions, and in fact have paid certain speakers $225,000 for an hour's work. All right. Number 4, point number 4. So you're looking at a fraudulent Wall Street. You're looking at a political system in which power rests with powerful financial institutions. You're looking at their political power coming from major campaign contributions and speakers' fees. But the 4th point that I want to make probably gets the American people angriest of all. Some kid in Indianapolis tonight gets picked up for possession of marijuana. That kid will have a criminal record for the rest of his life. And that's not a joke. That's not a joke. Because if you have a criminal record and you go in and you're trying to get a job and your employer says, well, tell me about yourself. Ever been arrested? Well, yes, sir, I was arrested. Well, I got somebody else interested in that job. Not an insignificant thing. But I want you to consider this. If you are the executive of a major Wall Street firm whose illegal behavior destroyed the lives of millions of Americans, you don't get a criminal record, not at all. You get an increase in your compensation package. And that is why we need to bring justice back to a broken criminal justice system. The word has got to go out. The word has got to go out from one end of this country to the other, that it is not just low-income kids who are going to get criminal records. Even if you are powerful and a billionaire, if you break the law, you are going to pay the price. And while we're on the subject of criminal justice, let me say this. Every person in this room, in this state, in this country, should be embarrassed that we have in this great country more people in jail than any other country on earth. We've got to think that one through, because we're talking about a corrupt campaign finance system, a rigged economy, and a broken criminal justice system in which today we are spending $80 billion every year to lock up 2.2 million Americans, disproportionately African American, Latino, and Native Americans. Together, we are going to end that international embarrassment. I want this country not to have more people in jail. I want this country to have the best educated population in the world. Now, right now, and again, this is an issue, many of these issues I'm talking about you don't see on TV. They're just not talked about, but they are the most important issues. Today, right now, throughout this country, youth unemployment, kids 17 to 20 who graduated high school, kids are white, 33%, unemployed, underemployed. Latino, 36%, African American, 51%. Together, what we are going to do is what makes sense from a human perspective and from a cost-effective perspective. We are going to invest in jobs and education for those kids, not jails or incarceration. Think of an America not where half of our children, our kids, are hanging out on street corners unemployed or underemployed, but an America where those young people are getting the job training they need to build the affordable housing and the quality schools that their communities deserve. When we talk about criminal justice, it is also important to talk about major local police department reform. I was a mayor for 8 years in Burlington, Vermont, and I worked very hard with my local police department, and I worked hard with police officers and organizations all over the country. Truth is that the overwhelming majority of police officers in this country are honest, hardworking, and doing a very difficult job. But, as in the case of any kind of public official, when a police officer breaks the law, that officer must be held accountable. We have got to demilitarize our local police departments. We have got to make police departments look like the diversity of the communities they serve. We have got to end private corporate ownership of jails and detention centers. It is a very perverse incentive to enable private corporations to make money by jailing fellow Americans. So we're going to end that. And the other thing that we have got to do, and this is a bit controversial, but we have got to take a hard look at the so-called war on drugs. For over the last 30 years, millions of Americans have received police records for possession of marijuana, and today, under the Federal Controlled Substance Act, marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug right next to heroin. And that is why I have introduced legislation which will take marijuana out of the Federal Controlled Substance Act. Now, whether or not marijuana becomes legal is a statewide decision. 4 states and D.C. have reached that decision, but possession should not be a federal crime. This campaign is listening to women. And women are tired of earning 79 cents on the dollar compared to men. Women, appropriately enough, want the whole damn dollar. And I know that every man in this room will stand with the women in the fight for pay equity. This campaign is listening to young people. And young people are asking me, how does it happen that when they do the right thing, when they do what their parents tell them, what their teachers tell them, when they do what their community tells them, go out and get the best education you can, why are they ending up $30,000, $50,000, $70,000 in debt? And the other point is, 40, 50 years ago, you had a high school degree. You were pretty well educated. You can go out and get a good middle-class job. But the economy and technology have changed. People today need more education. And that is why, you know, when you think outside of the box and outside of the status quo, you come to the obvious conclusion that public education today in 2016 cannot simply be first grade through 12th grade. That was great 50 years ago, 30 years ago. Today, we need to make public colleges and universities tuition-free. Public colleges and universities tuition-free. Now, furthermore, all of you know that in Germany, in Scandinavia, and countries around the world, they're doing it today. Those countries are smart enough to understand that it makes a lot of sense to be investing in their young people and the future of their country. And we also have to deal with the crisis of student debt. And that means that for the millions of people who have that debt, those debts today, we have got to allow them to refinance those loans at the lowest possible interest rates they can find. Now, I am criticized for thinking too big. This is just too radical an idea. Bernie, you're Santa Claus, you're giving away all these free things. How are you going to pay for it? Well, let me tell you exactly how we're going to pay for it. 2009, the United States Congress bailed out Wall Street. I believe that now, with Wall Street doing just fine, it is time to impose a tax on Wall Street speculation. And that will bring in more than enough money to make public colleges and universities tuition-free and substantially lower student debt. This campaign is listening to the African American community. And they're asking a very simple and intelligent question, and that is, how does it happen that we have enough money to spend trillions of dollars on a war in Iraq that we never should have gotten into? A war which I vigorously opposed. But how does it happen that we have trillions of dollars for war, but we don't have sufficient funds to rebuild inner cities throughout this country? In Flint, Michigan, children were drinking poisoned water. In Detroit, their public school system is on the verge of a financial collapse. In Baltimore, Maryland, tens of thousands of people are heroin addicts and not getting the treatment that they need. And in inner cities all over this country, kids are living in extreme poverty, in homelessness, and certainly not getting the health care that they need. If this country is capable of investing in the infrastructure of Iraq and Afghanistan, we sure as hell can rebuild inner cities in this country. That is called getting our priorities right. Less money for war, no tax breaks for billionaires, reinvesting in inner cities in America. This country is listening to the Latino community. And what they are telling me is there are 11 million people in this country who are now undocumented. Many of them are being exploited every single day by their employers, because when you do not have legal status, your employer can cheat you and you have no recourse. And that is why I believe that we need comprehensive immigration reform and a path towards citizenship. This campaign is listening to a people whose pain is very, very rarely heard, and that is the Native American community. Anyone who has studied American history knows that from before the time we were a country, when the first settlers came here, the Native American people were lied to, they were cheated, and many of the treaties they negotiated and signed were broken. We owe the Native American people more than we can ever repay. Among so many other things, more than anyone else, they have taught us that we, as human beings, are part of nature, that we have got to live with nature. And if we continue to destroy nature, we're going to destroy our own species. That's what they have taught us. But yet, despite the enormous contributions they have made to our country on reservations throughout this country and in Native American communities, unemployment and poverty are sky high. The suicide rate of young people is beyond belief. If elected president, we will change our relationship to the Native American people of this country. I talked a moment ago about the greed and irresponsibility and illegal behavior of Wall Street and what they have done to our economy. Let me talk for a moment about the greed and irresponsibility of the fossil fuel industry. I am a member of the U.S. Senate Committee on the Environment. And in that capacity, I've had the privilege of talking to some of the great scientists in our country and around the world. And what they have said without ambiguity and almost unanimously, climate change is real, climate change is caused by human activity, and climate change already is causing devastating problems in this country and throughout the world. And what they have also told us is that we have a very short window of opportunity to move aggressively, to move boldly, to transform our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energies. This is no small thing. This is like the future of the planet. And we have, as custodians of this earth, we have a moral responsibility to work with China, Russia, India, countries all over the world in telling the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. Now, let me just connect a few dots here and tell you again something that the media, for obvious reasons, does not talk about. And that is, how does it happen that we have a major political party, a party that controls the U.S. Senate today and the U.S. House, and yet not more than a handful of Republicans in Congress are prepared to tell you and the American people what virtually the entire scientific community has concluded, and that is that climate change is real and threatening the planet. Now, why does this happen? How does it happen? Is it because Republicans are dummies? The answer is no. I know you're going to say yes. It's no. No. I've been on committees with Republicans. We talk about health care and Alzheimer's and diabetes, and they ask very sensible questions. But the answer here ties into a corrupt campaign finance system. Because the day that a Republican comes here at IU and says, you know what, I've talked to the scientists, I've read the literature, this climate change is serious, we've got to do something about it. On that day, the Koch brothers and the other people in the fossil fuel industry cut their campaign funds. And that is why we have got to tell the Republican Party, listen to the scientists, not your campaign contributors. And by the way, when we, not if, but when we together transform our energy system, when we create a modern transportation system that takes cars and trucks off the roads, when we weatherize our homes and our buildings, when tens of millions of Americans have solar panels on their rooftops, and when wind energy becomes far more prevalent than it is today, when all of that happens, we're going to create millions of good-paying jobs. And one of the differences between Secretary Clinton and myself is that I believe this crisis of climate change is so significant, is so threatening to our planet, that we have got to act boldly. That is why I have introduced the most comprehensive climate change legislation in the history of the Congress, which includes a tax on carbon. And I would hope very much that Secretary Clinton would understand that given the severity of the crisis, that is exactly what we have to do. Now, this campaign is asking people again to think outside of the box, to ask kind of obvious questions that too often we just don't ask. Questions such as, why is it that the United States of America is the only major country on earth, the only one, that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right? Go to the United Kingdom, health care for all. Go to France, health care for all. Germany, Holland, Scandinavia, health care for all. Go to Canada, 50 miles away from where I live, health care for all. We are the only country. And the reason, again, gets back to money and politics. Everybody, a vast majority of the American people, understand that from a moral perspective, when a poor person or a working class person gets sick, that person should be entitled to the same type of health care as a wealthy person with good health insurance. Now, The question is, why haven't we moved in the direction of every other major country? Why is it that today, despite the gains of the Affordable Care Act, why is it that 29 million people still have no health insurance? Why is it that many of you and millions of other Americans are underinsured with high deductibles and copayments? And you know what high deductibles and copayments mean? It means you may not go to the doctor when you get sick. And you know what that means? That thousands of people in this country die every year because they go to the doctor too late. Why is it that in our dysfunctional healthcare system, we pay by far the highest prices in the world for prescription drugs? You want to hear crazy? Crazy is 1 out of 5 Americans going to their doctor, getting a prescription, and not being able to afford to fill that prescription. Crazy is senior citizens in Indiana cutting their pills in half because they don't have the money to buy the medicine they need. And crazy is the 3 major drug companies in this country last year made $45 billion in profits. Crazy is that despite all of these issues that we have, we end up spending far, far more per capita on healthcare than do the people of any other nation. We spend almost 3 times more than the British, 50% more than the French, far more than the Canadians. In my view, the time is now for us to join the rest of the industrialized world, guarantee health care to all people as a right, and do that through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Now, my good friend Donald Trump, just kidding, not my good friend. I myself and my wife did not even get invited to his wedding. Can you believe that? Some people did, but we didn't. All right. And there is a lot of concern that Donald Trump might become president of the United States. Don't worry, it won't happen. It won't happen for a lot of reasons. I was just looking before I came here at some polling, the last half dozen polls taken in April of this year. Every one of them had us far, far, far ahead of Donald Trump. And I mean far ahead, like 15 or 20 points. And we were also much further ahead of him than Secretary Clinton. Donald Trump will not become president of the United States because he believes that when we have a minimum wage of $7.25 an hour, we should not raise that minimum wage. I think that's nuts. The American people want a minimum wage of $15 an hour, not keeping the minimum wage at $7.25. American people are not going to vote for Donald Trump for president because he thinks that climate change is a hoax Now listen to this. This is pretty amazing. That Republicans think it's a hoax is sad but not surprising. But he has his own particular angle on this. He thinks it's a hoax created by the Chinese, which was very confusing to me. I thought he would have thought it was a hoax created by Muslims or Mexicans. Donald Trump is not going to become president because he wants to throw millions of people off of the Affordable Care Act, and he has no alternative. Donald Trump will not become president because in a Republican quote-unquote debate, dare I call them debates, he suggested that wages in America were too high. Donald Trump will not become president because he thinks it's a wonderful idea that we give hundreds of billions of dollars in tax breaks to billionaire families like his. But I'll tell you why else Donald Trump will not become president. Because the American people will not be voting for a candidate to become president who every single day is insulting Mexicans and Latinos, who is insulting Muslims, who is insulting women, who is insulting veterans, who is insulting the African American community. Now, that is not the type of candidate, the American people will vote for president. Which is why we can only hope and pray that he gets the Republican nomination. But on a deeper level, the American people understand that what makes this country great is our diversity. The American people understand that when we come together, black and white, people born in this country, people born abroad, Latino, Asian Americans, Native Americans, gay and straight, that when we come together as a people, that always is stronger and that always trumps dividing us up. The American people understand that no person in this world, in this country, survives alone. That in one way or another we are dependent on each other and that we need to support each other. That we are great. When your family is in trouble, my family is there for you. When my family is in trouble, you are there for us. The American people understand that supporting each other always trumps selfishness. And perhaps most importantly, in a very troubled and violent world, the American people understand what every major religion on earth, whether it's Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Buddhism, whatever the religion may be, the American people understand in the depths of their souls that love always trumps hatred. All over this country, the American people are looking at the status quo. They're looking around them and they're saying, why do we have so much income and wealth inequality? Why is it that the middle class continues to decline? Why is it that youth unemployment is 30, 40, 50%? Why is it that we have a dysfunctional child care system? Why is our infrastructure collapsing in front of us? Why is it that women are making 79 cents on the dollar? Why is it that kids are leaving school $30, $40, $50,000 in debt? Why aren't we doing more to transform our energy system and combat climate change? Why is it that we are the only major country on earth that doesn't guarantee paid family and medical leave or health care for all of our people? Now, some people, including my Democratic opponents, say Bernie is thinking too big. You got to be more incremental. You got to think smaller. You can't really address those issues. And I strongly disagree, because I believe that the lesson of history, whether it is the fight to end worker exploitation, whether it's the civil rights movement, whether it is the women's movement, whether it is the gay movement, no matter what those movements are, what they always tell us is that real change in America never comes from the top on down, always from the bottom on up. And what this campaign is about is asking millions of Americans from all walks of life to begin the process of standing up and fighting back, of understanding that it is just too late for establishment politics and establishment economics, to understand that when we stand together, we can create a government that represents all of us and not just wealthy campaign contributors. On Tuesday, there is going to be a very, very important Democratic primary here in the state of Indiana. And what I have learned throughout this campaign is that we do well when the turnout is high. We do not do well when the turnout is low. Next Tuesday, let us have the highest voter turnout in Indiana history for a Democratic primary. And let the great state of Indiana join the 17 other states that have said it is time for a political revolution. Thank you all.
Well, good evening, everybody. That was quick. Thank you, Steph, for finding that. That was actually right on the Bernie 2016 official YouTube channel. They had about 1,800 watching. We had about 550 or more, I'm guessing, watching. Thank you all for joining us. That was awesome. A very nice, clean feed from them. Had no idea that was going to happen. And time was totally not any time we thought it was going to happen whatsoever. So, that's how it is. And it was nice to catch it. Different tone in the speech. I actually thought, and I saw a lot of people commenting, they thought Bernie was maybe a little dragged down or wore down. He sounded tired. I actually thought it was just more of a, and see, get rid of that here. I found his tone to be just more serious. I think he was really getting down to the nature of what's going on here, what needs to be addressed. He called out Hillary several times. He mentioned the Donald Trump wedding. He said a lot of things he hasn't said before. He really said some different things. I was a little surprised. Hi everybody, nice to have you with us. Yeah. Sweater's back here. It's a little hot today. It's really nice. There's some interesting news. I don't know if you guys were with it this morning. Give me 1 second. I want to show you something. We'll talk about this tomorrow in the newsroom. All right. But I want you to go here. I want you to go here and take a look at. We were talking this morning about what do we do next? What do we do? Right? How do we organize? So it's not about next. Let me rephrase that. How do we organize? And this is the answer. brandnewcongress.org. Now, I went here. I signed up. I'm going to get updates, going to get more involved with this. But this is a lot of people that were involved. Let's see. I should have read the top part. Actually, you can't see where it says what it is. Come on. Where's it? These are people from, there's a lot of people here involved. These are people, and they've got a plan of action. And it's basically to put a whole bunch of people in office. This is the 1 foot in portion of the plan. Okay. And what's cool about this is it's people from Bernie Sanders campaign, or who were working for Bernie Sanders campaign before, the Obama campaign. There's a whole bunch of different groups, a whole bunch of different people involved with this that recognize we need to build out this structure. Exactly what we were talking about this morning in the newsroom. Exactly what Scott and I were talking about. How do we do this? How do we move forward? Where's the plan? Well, they've got a plan. So this is the 1 foot in portion of that plan. Okay, and while and we can, so we'll talk more about that tomorrow. But I want you guys to go there, take a look at that, sign up, get involved with this. All right, it's brandnewcongress.org. Okay? So that's one thing I want to show you. The other thing is a little more humorous. Steph and I were having a discussion about what to do for the cover tomorrow, and I really wanted to go more humorous, and he wanted to go more serious with the 1 foot in, 1 foot out kind of thing. I'm dying about this. I'm sorry. Cruz Fiorina is just the weirdest, creepiest, bizarrest combo of people. I just had to laugh. I got to laugh. And I thought you could do a whole Munsters parody theme or something, or I don't know. But the comments on this, if you guys go to the hashtag Cruz Fiorina, are pretty awesome. It's really kind of funny. Like that, it's as exciting as canned bread. Some of the vehicles, there's a Jesus vehicle they said they purchased together. Those faces right there, and there's another vehicle. So have fun. Take a breath from the intensity of the political reunion, and have a little laugh on the fact that this is really just a very odd, in my personal opinion, a very odd combo, and I don't really think it will have any effect whatsoever on Trump or anything. It's just really, really bizarre. Very cool thing. Tomorrow, Bernie's going to be in my neck of the woods. No, I can't go. Got all sorts of shit going down tomorrow. We have the newsroom, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. Then we have Bernie Sanders in Eugene, Springfield, Oregon. He's going to be down there, and I'm sure there will be a feed, and we will cover that. So that's at noon Pacific, because he's on the West Coast, so I'm going to use Pacific time. I don't care, Jesse, I tell you everything's in East Coast, but not when he's out here, all right? Hi there, Liam. So we're going to do that, and what's that song? We've only just begun to live. Yeah, Streisand sang that sang that senior year choir as we graduated, actually. Nice arrangement. Very, very complex. Anyway, I digress. Tomorrow, Bernie, Oregon, noon. Then, We the People. Yes, We the People, a little later than normal, because I have somewhere to be, and I'm going to get back from that, and I'm going to need to remember who it is. And give me 1 second, and I will tell you who it is, because I was supposed to have this ready to go, and I didn't. And now I feel really bad. But I want to tell you who we have for We the People, because I'm hoping I can do that while we're live. And nope, somebody's going to put it in there. What's his name, everybody? Somebody give me his name, quick. Jeff Kessler. Thank you. We will have Jeff Kessler on We the People tomorrow. He's a very busy guy as well, doing some awesome things from what I understand. So we're very excited to have him on. He may be a little late. I may be a little late. It's probably going to start somewhere between 7:15 and 7:30 Eastern, which is a little later than normal. But I really hope you'll join us, because I don't think Bernie, well, as of now, we don't have any other scheduled Bernie events. Watch him be like, Bernie live from Milwaukee, Oregon. Be like, what would we do then, Jesse? What the hell would we do then? I don't know. I'd have to go. I'd have to. Anyway, that's what's going on tomorrow. So a very busy day with the newsroom, and then the Bernie rally in Eugene, Oregon, which is going to be awesome. And then We the People with Jeff Kessler. Join us for all of those things. I'm going to go out with... I'm going to go out with something a little different, but it's because of what we're dealing with, what we're talking about. I want to. Bernie is focused on the big game, right? Thinking big. The big game is the fact that we need to reshape our entire government, and we have to do it very quickly because we have a planet to save. And I want to refocus everything on that planetary goal. And we don't have decades to wade through bureaucracy. We don't have decades to wait for incremental climate change. We have to mount a mobilization. Bernie is aware of this, but I don't know that we can get it done if we have to wait another 4 years of establishment, lack of movement on climate change. And the Paris Agreement is a pile of shit. It's not really going to do anything for climate change. We need to absolutely stop using fossil fuels now, and we need to be done and switched over to renewables in 10 years. We got about 10 years. That's the reality. That's the new science data, the new fact. Everything you hear on establishment news is reporting old news. They're giving you old information. They haven't updated because they don't follow things at the speed of the net or at the speed of scientists. They're just grasping with the old data. So we don't have 50 years. We don't have 40, 30. We don't have 20. We have 10 years to get this done. We can do it because we've done things like this before. We went to the moon in 10 years. So we can do this. But I want to refocus on the reality of what we have to do, and the only person who recognizes how imperative it is, and that is Bernie Sanders. So we will talk tomorrow about what all that means in a bigger sense. We'll talk tomorrow about where we're headed next, what's going on with the race, and what Bernie had to say today, as well as another statement he made earlier that was pretty powerful. But we've only just begun to burn. That is absolutely right. That is absolutely right. All right, let me just check live production, make sure I'm not forgetting anything important. I don't think so. All right, we're out of here, everybody. This is Beyond the Horizon, Symphony of Science. I played Symphony of... this is Melody Sheep, actually, is the YouTube channel that does this, all right? And they're the ones who did the original Symphony of Science, We Are All Connected, that I just absolutely love. And this is another one. This is an updated one with Bill Nye and Neil deGrasse Tyson, two of my superheroes, real-life, actual superheroes, badass mofos who know what the hell they're doing, who know science, who understand the universe, who we should be listening to more than gas bags in suit and ties that are thinking like ancient 1930s Depression-era scarcity dinos. Right? We need to be listening to the progressives. It's the 21st century. Let's start acting like it. Feel the burn, everybody. We'll see you tomorrow. This is Beyond the Horizon, Symphony of Science and the Planetary Society.
We are at a
at a time in history where we can change the world? What do we want to pass on to future generations? That we just stayed here on Earth, that we didn't look out to find out where we come from and are we alone? No, we want to pass on this joy, this excitement.
When a nation dreams big, everything falls into place.
Beyond the horizon, over the next hill, that's where we make discoveries.
That's the next frontier.
It is in us to look farther and deeper. It's deep within us. That is why we are all here. Over the next hill, beyond the horizon.
Dream of tomorrow, tomorrow. Long for the open seas. All for this adventure. Dream big, dream big. Dream of tomorrow, tomorrow. Long for the open seas, for the open seas.
There are lots of huge frozen worlds caught beyond Neptune. Huge frozen worlds. Seek out these other worlds. Hundreds of other worlds caught beyond Neptune. Caught beyond Neptune. Seek out these other worlds.
Audacious visions have the power to alter mind states, to change assumptions about what is possible.
Beyond the horizon, over the next hill, that's where we make discoveries.
That's the next frontier.
It is in us to look farther and deeper. It's deep within us. That is why we are all here. Over the next hill, beyond the horizon. If we are to discover life on another world, it will change the way everyone feels about what it is to be a living thing in the cosmos.
Is a virus alive? Is crystal alive? Does life need this? Does life need liquid water? Is a virus alive? Does life have metabolism? Does life need this? Is a virus alive? Is crystal alive? They're asking these questions.
Working together, I claim we can change the world.
There's a just tremendously exciting prospect called solar sailing, and it works exactly as an ordinary sailboat does.
It takes you to where you want to go. It's a whole new kind of idea. It travels on the wind from the sun. It takes you to where you want to go. It's a whole new kind of idea. It travels on the wind from the sun.
These dreams prevail in the citizens' ambitions.
It is time to set sail for the 21st century.
Beyond the horizon, over the next hill, that's where we make discoveries.
That's the next frontier.
It is in us to look farther and deeper. It's deep within us. That is why we are all here. Over the next hill, beyond the horizon. Beyond the horizon,
that's the next frontier.
It is in us to look farther and deeper. It's deep within us. That is why we are all here. Over the next hill, beyond the horizon.
Find your place in space. Space is vast and unexplored. There's a lot of work to do.
Huge